all going on a summer holiday. Welcome along to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. Now, this week's show is a little bit different because I'm currently away on holiday and have not been able to record on the usual Thursday that I do. So therefore, anything could have happened at the time I'm recording this, just before I go away. This is still like Friday before, so this is being recorded 6 days before the show actually goes out. So if anything huge happens in the coming days between now and the show being recorded, then we'll just get to it next week. But I didn't want to leave you without a show for this week. So in continuing with the current series of chatting to the newly promoted side from Tier 5 into Tier 4 next season, then this week I'm talking to the Bournemouth Sports manager, Ricky Barton. Really good chat with him, just over 20 minutes or so. And that will be this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. We started by him telling me just how that final day of the season with Bournemouth Sports needing a point to go up, just how it was.
It didn't look like it was going to happen. Probably about 4 games to go, we lost away to Oxford. And we thought it was out of our hands at that point. And then we stopped. Ascot needed to get a draw at our place to win the league, and we beat them. And then sort of the wheels fell off them a little bit, and we swooped in and stole it at the end. So it was, it was a bit of a frantic end to the season, a bit of an unexpected one, to be fair. But yeah, it ultimately went our way.
I mean, that final game, it was a case of, you're there, but you're not there, because all you had to do was not lose by about 11 goals, and that was going to be it. But that must have been quite a challenging mindset for the players to say, yeah, okay, we're 99% sure we've got there, but still concentrate.
Yeah, it was interesting. If you look through the Woodley stats, I think Woodley had scored 15 goals all season at home. They're not prolific goal scorers, but they're really hard to break down. So we kind of thought it was going to be a close game anyway, before we even thought about going there. And then, it was, I think the nice thing was we had the cup final to follow it up. So therefore we had to put in a performance because we still had another big game to go. So everyone was still sort of playing for their place in that final. But yeah, it's nice. I said to the girls before the game, you've got a choice of what champions you want to be here. You can just go through, lose 3-0 and mess around, or you can go and do it in a bit of style, or you can behave how you wish. And there's not many people in that sort of luxury position. Although I did see one of the other Tier 5 leagues went exactly the same way. The final team of the I'm not sure which one it was, but they had to not lose 11-0. So Woodley were brilliant. To be fair, they were great hosts. It was a nice day in the end. So and the girls got to enjoy it a little bit. I think it's nice to be able to win it with a result rather than win it with everything else going against you, or waiting for results elsewhere. It was nice to actually be there at that time. So
I can imagine. Yeah. How quickly after that final whistle did you go, all right, new league, new challenge, this is all going to be a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think because it was such a big result, and when we looked at it, we don't often beat Woodley. In fact, I'm not sure we ever have, but we don't often. Well, we're not. I don't think we can see the 11 all season. So I kind of already contacted National League and said, look, it's very, very close. Can we have some information? But yeah, after the game, it was a bit like, what have we done? It was never the intention. When I set the team up,
got some paperwork to do now.
Yeah, that's it. And we'd looked at some of the paperwork already, and it was not fun. So it never the intention to go as far as we have. When I set the team up 11 years ago, And then we set the reserves up probably about 5 years ago now. And when we had that discussion, it was a bit like, you know what, we need to expand. There's a lot of players here, but a competing regional team and a good county team was kind of the expectation or the target, if you like. And the girls just keep going on and doing more and more and more. So on both teams, to be fair, the reserves and the firsts have both they keep exceeding our expectations. So a lot of credit goes to them.
You touched on it a bit there. Just tell me a bit about like the history of the club. You say you started it 11 years ago.
Yeah, so I was at another club, and there was an issue backroom kind of thing that I just didn't really agree with. And my coach at the time, who was there as well, we were running first and reserves together. So as a friend of mine, we were running both teams, and they were going to change the structure. We didn't really agree with it. I left, and I had an offer from Bournemouth Sports because they wanted a ladies team. And 11 years ago, the game, I don't know how long you've been in women's football, but the game was very different 11 years ago. And to find a men's team that were willing to, stand side by side with their women's team and support it was quite rare. And the chairman approached me and said, look, I'm looking to bring a women's side on. Are you interested? It was a bit more local for me. And as luck would have it, I ended up going to play for that men's side as well later on. So I've got quite good links between the men and the women's section. So we set it up. We started with a very humble beginning. I think we had 5 players at the first training session. Jumpers for goalposts in the middle of a rec. And we sort of meandered through the first season, if you like. It was just about survival, trying to get our place in there. We'd moved over from Dorset to Hampshire, which was a much, much bigger challenge. And one we probably weren't ready for in terms of the quality difference in that change of area. But we survived, and a local team, Harley Ladies, who don't exist anymore, unfortunately, they helped us out. We had good links with them. They were just up the road from us, and they would lend us a player or two if we were really short and help us out. And I think that having local links with another team meant that as we've gone through, we've tried to do the same. So we've tried to help out other teams as they're starting up and they're kind of beginning their kind of journey as well. And it gave us a good understanding of actually working together is probably the best way to move forward with it. And then we built that, and it just grew and grew. And we were ever runners up. So we finished runners up in Division 3, got promoted, finished runners up in Division 2, Hampshire this was, got promoted, finished runners up in Division 1, got promoted, and we always finished behind AFC Bournemouth. And then we went to the Southern region. We finished, and then Bournemouth had kind of accelerated away at this stage, and their reserve team were now in our league. We finished runners up to Bournemouth Development in Southern Region 1, but they couldn't go up, so we went up to the Prem, and then a couple of seasons later, we finally managed to win a league. So, and then the reserves, as I say, about 5 years ago, we had about 30, 40 players on our books, and we had to make a decision if we wanted to keep the offer going and expand it out to more players. And we didn't really want to lose the core of players that had started the team. And the game's developed, so the players coming through were getting stronger and stronger. We didn't want to lose our core and like kind of our heart of it. So we decided to set the reserves up, and then they were meant to just be there for our youth team coming through to kind of have a nice pathway into women's football. And they went and won Division 3 Hampshire, but it was interrupted for COVID. Then they won Division 2 Hampshire. And then they finished runners up in Division 1, and they kind of worked their way through the leagues that way. So they just kept, every time we were going, right, we'll just stabilise, we'll have a nice period of keeping everything consistent. They just kept going, no, we'll just win something else. So it's been fun. And then the FA Cup run we had last season kind of gave us a financial backing, if you like. The money we earned from that third round or getting to the third round meant that we had enough money in there to kind of invest in the players, and we invested in the GPS, we invested in the VO, we invested in our training facilities, we added strength and conditioning, and without knowing it, we'd sort of started building something that was going to push National League standard. Not quite there, but it was going to push it. And suddenly we got halfway through the season and we were like, actually, we're quite good. This investment is beginning to pay off. The players are are doing really well, and the reserves went into tier 6. And when we looked at the league at the start, we just thought they're going to struggle in here. And they finished mid-table, a really credible mid-table in there as well. So both sides just really outdone what we could have ever dreamed of them doing last season. But what we ever dreamed of, we always said that region was probably our ceiling, because ultimately we are in AFC Bournemouth's shadow. And as the years have gone on, there's been a lot bigger clubs than us sort of come and go, really. They've kind of disappeared and fell away as we've continued to kind of grow and move forward, really. So it's it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, it's fascinating because we had on last week's show, we had Dylan, the manager of Cheadle Town Stingers, and he said, Cheadle have got no right playing Middlesbrough and Leeds United and Doncaster Rovers Bells are teams of all that history. And you've said there as well that you thought regional would be the ceiling of Bournemouth Sports, and you've gone from, with no disrespect to these teams, the Winchester, Badshot Lee, and then next season you're coming up against the likes of Bournemouth. You've got Swindon Town in there. You've got Bridgewater United with their history once they used to be Yeovil. You've got Southampton Women's with all their FA Cup history as well. It's almost a completely different world.
Yeah. It's immediately when we kind of went up, we were like, okay, now we're playing with the big boys. Moneyfields have obviously now offered parity pay with their men. AFC Bournemouth have got a few on contract there. And we are still, we've had to keep our kind of grassroots community club. They fund themselves to be there. We just can't afford to not do that. And we don't have the stadium, we don't have the massive facilities, or the money really. But what they do have in abundance is just an absolute ability to win football matches. And I think ultimately when you claw football back to what it is, that is what it's all about for me. Like that, just the 90 minutes on the pitch, all the other stuff in the background, we try and protect them from, and then we just let them get on with training and playing, and that's kind of how we move forward. But they're great. They'll help out where they can. I've got quite an older team. We've brought some youth players through last season, and we, I think one of our games last year, our average age on our bench was 17. So we've attracted some of the quality over around the local areas that may not have made trials for Bournemouth, may not have made it at Bournemouth, and they've moved over. And I think it's just a credit to the club really that we can still attract these players in, even though we're not that elite pathway. It's about enjoyment and about getting together with your friends at training and wanting to be there. I think is the major thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, what are you most looking forward to next season? We've touched on it there that you've got all those local games, the Southampton Women's, the Moneyfields, the Bournemouth, where you could get some big crowds in. There's chance, of course, within the Cup and/or Plate, depending on that determining round fixture, to go with some Tier 3 teams from that southern region as well. You've got what was Cardiff City, now Gwalior United, with their international players in there and all their history, and the likes of Milton Keynes Dons in there, Ipswich in there, these big clubs that you've now got the opportunity to come up against, perhaps.
Yeah, I think I'll put it out there now. I want to avoid Cardiff. I've already been there. We went there. That was our FA Cup third round game. I can do without that again. The keeper there was unbelievable.
Laura O'Sullivan is just, I mean, when you've got Wales #1 in net, then it is. Those who have been watching the show for a while will know I spent a bit of time with Cardiff City ladies while I was at university, and
okay.
It was very different then, because I remember doing a game against Tottenham, and obviously Tottenham now flying high, and they won that game. Did Cardiff, but yeah, there are so many opportunities for your side this season.
Yeah, that's it. I think the obvious one for the girls, I think, will be the AFC Bournemouth game. I think that's the one when they went up against Exeter the final day. We had a few people in the crowd there, and I think it would be, you have to relish those. A lot of my players have come from AFC Bournemouth. They've played under Steve Cuss. They've been there, and they played against me in the FA Cup, a few of the players. So when we lost to Bournemouth in the FA Cup a few years back, like 3 or 4 of the players were in that team. So, we got to look forward to that local derby. I just think it was really important for us that we went up, we took the promotion. We've got to jump through a lot of admin, a lot of paperwork, a lot of rules, and we're doing our best to meet it. But it was really important we went up and gave it a go. And even if we, came back down, I think it was important for us to, we earned the right to be there. And I'm quite an advocate of the pyramid. So I sort of feel like if you win that league, regardless of how you feel about the next level up, you've got to go and give it a go. And that means you have a tough season. We've had historically successful seasons every year. Maybe only runners up. We don't win a lot of silverware, but we've had successful seasons, and we've always felt like, let's try ourselves at the next level. Let's try ourselves at the next level. And for that, we attract more and more quality in. So I think the Bournemouth game would be a big one. It'll be nice to meet Moneyfields again. We used to play against them as they came through the leagues when Southampton FC were going through the leagues as well. We had a lovely time in Hampshire 1 with Moneyfields and Southampton and playing at clubs like that where we just turned up and just tried to defend for our lives. But it is nice to when we went up, people were going, "What are you going to do about the travel?" And I said, "Well, the travel is actually better than Southern Region Prem for us because it's a lot of local clubs in there." And there's some rivalries, but it's friendly rivalries really. We played Moneyfields in the County Cup this year. We gave them a good game. We lost in injury time against Moneyfields 1-0. We went to Keynsham in the FA Cup. We lost 1-0 away there. So we know we can compete. I think that's the key for us. We just want to be competitive. We want to be in the games. We don't want to just be there to make up the numbers. If we can be a little bit of a nuisance to the top 3-4 clubs in there, then wonderful. But I think we can give ourselves a chance in that league. When you look at the bottom half, there's points to be had. So I think, and then the League Cup, obviously, how that falls will be a really interesting one as well. So it'd be nice to have some of the big clubs to come down to Chapelgate and introduce them there, because we've got 21 youth teams at Bournemouth Sports, and it would just be nice for the kids to see that. And we've got a couple of girls teams in there, and it'd be nice to see, you haven't got to be on that elite pathway. You haven't got to be the greatest player when you're 10, 11 years old, because that's not what my players were. But if you work hard and you put the effort in, actually, you can still achieve some really good stuff. So I think that's just nice for the club to see that as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that all of the paperwork that you've had to do ahead of the new season, and of course going into Tier 4, there is all the ground grading criteria. You have to be able to have certain things. Have the club had to bring anything in, make any changes ahead of the new season?
Yes, we are going to have to. We're still working on it as it happens. Yesterday I was at a meeting at the club with John Paul from the Football Foundation Premier League groundings, and the chairman, and we were looking at how we can make it work at Chapelgate. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to be able to still play at home, and we will have to make adaptations for that. And we've got the backroom staff. We don't have a big staff. We can't afford to pay 4 or 5 coaches. Everyone at Bournemouth Sports is a volunteer. It's all run on volunteers. So getting those people in to do the work for us is massive. And June is kind of June time is where I get to spend some time with my family, and everyone else gets a little bit of a break. And suddenly that was just like, now we're going to do paperwork, and everyone's going to work out what qualifications they need to get done ASAP, and where we need to pull in some extra volunteers. And we're quite fortunate. We've made a lot of friends on the way up, and we've got a few contacts that we can to pull in and help us. We've tried to do it in a way that people want to see us do well, and therefore we can get that help. And National League have been quite good in terms of trying to help us. We've got our one-to-one meeting next week, I believe. The ground grading stuff is stuff that we've got to work on, but BU, who own Chapelgate where we play, they're on board as well, and they're looking to see what they can do to assist us to get the games played there. At the end of the day, if we have to go and play somewhere else, then we'll have to get in contact with some local clubs and see what we can do. But ultimately, we want to carry on the journey where we started it, really.
Yeah, it's fascinating because of course you don't get it when you're higher up and thinking about all these things. Even some things like, oh, you have to provide a printed team sheet for spectators and all things like that. So right now somebody needs to print off 100 team sheets before every before the games. So do we have somewhere we can plug a printer in? And it's all things like that. But I'm sure it caused quite a few headaches for you over the course of the summer so far. Just
Yeah.
finish off, kind of what are you then most looking forward to next season? We've spoken about the rivalries, you get the chance to challenge yourself. Presumably the aim is 10th and picking up those points where you can.
Yeah, I think we've gone through the kind of league table as it stands, and we've had a look at places where we think we can pick up some points. When you look at the history of that league, 12, 14 points looks like it will likely be enough, and then you just kind of have to go through and go, okay, where can we gain those? Um, we're very, very fortunate that we've got some exceptional players, but it'll be nice that we've got open training next week, and it'll be nice to see the new kind of talent coming through and the new players that we attract. Invariably, we've brought about 10 players on every season, and it's each season just it never fails to amaze me the quality of player coming through. And I think every year I change I've been in women's football for 21 years now, 22 years maybe, and every year you see these players and you're like, okay, she's the best player I've ever coached. I'm not sure what I can actually teach her here, and it changes so quickly because the quality coming through now, and I think I'm quite excited about just seeing those players coming through. And we've had a lot of inquiries from a lot of youngsters in the local area, sort of 16, 17-year-olds, who have been at different places for various reasons, and kind of they've expressed an interest to join us and kind of see what we're about. And I think that's the most exciting bit, just seeing those new players, seeing that new talent, and seeing how they embed into the kind of culture and that change of culture as well. Because if you've come out of that elite pathway and you come to a community club that are competing on the same level, it's a very different culture. And it kind of, we had some senior players that come over, and it takes them a little bit of time to adjust to go, okay, this is how it is. I quite like that. It's quite fun. But yeah, with the elements of the kind of seriousness of the training and the high expectations of each other, and it's just driven off the players really, that expectation to just do more. I think is one of the coach's favorite lines is winners do more, and I think that's they've kind of been indoctrinated for it now. We've had a few pre-season challenges where you just see winners do more just pop up everywhere. So I think that's the thing for me, just seeing that new crop of talent coming through, and how we develop as a football club from that as well. And that always brings in its challenges of keeping that core and the heart of the team that have taken you through, and the players that have been with you for many years. We've got one player that's been with us since the beginning, since that first season, and keeping those players in there, and they have to work exceptionally hard to maintain their positions, but they're willing to do it, and they step up and do it. So I think that's the development of those players as well is great to watch.
Yeah, and it shows how women's football as a whole is improving, and the coaching is getting better all through the juniors, in that every single year you're coming in and going, well, that player's now the best I've ever coached, and the next year, oh no, actually it's this one, and they're just getting better every single year.
Yeah, like my wife played, and she still does play now, but for elsewhere. But she started when she was 19, and when she was like mid-30s, and there was players that are 16, 17, running rings. I was like, you have to remember they've played for as long as you have. Like they've been in the game as long as you have, because they're half your age. They've got that experience. And my daughter plays now, and she's 7 years old. And she's played since she was 2, and you kind of take it for granted to an extent, because 21 years ago when I was involved, or I started on my kind of women's football journey, 2-year-old, 3-year-old girls did not play football. That was just not a thing. So it's brilliant for the women's game. It's great for the girls, and I went to see our girls under 14s, 13s playing their cup final this year. And when you watch those under 13s play, there's some real quality coming through in that age group, and the kind of the teenage groups as well. So the game is just going to keep getting better and better, and we kind of just have to for us as Bournemouth Sports, I think we just have to try and keep up with it a little bit and see what we can do. So that's the it'll be fun, I think, once we've got all the admin out of the way. We have to survive just for the sheer fact that the admin has to be worth it. So.
Well, Ricky, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat to me. I know you're away at the moment, and we had our chat was interrupted by the fire alarm at the hotel just as soon as we started. But best of luck to yourself and the rest of Bournemouth Sports for next season. We'll be keeping a close eye on you throughout the year on the Women's Football Chat. And as I said, thanks for joining me.
No problem at all, Chris. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we get to do it again.
Yes, a big thank you to Ricky for taking the time out to chat to me, particularly while he was away with work and disrupted by a fire alarm. That will about do it then for this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. Normal service will be resumed next week. We have that huge quarter-final draw in the summer knockout tournament. We're down now to the last 8 teams in that competition. Of course, at the time of recording this, don't know which 8 out of the 16 still in. It will be because the voting doesn't close until midnight on Sunday. So quarter-final draw will be back next week, and pre-season will be underway for most of the teams then as well. With any luck, we might be very close to new fixtures as well, and I can finally get this board filled in, stop it looking quite so sad as it has done throughout the summer. I'll be back then next Thursday at 6 p.m. with all the very latest from the FAWNL. But for now, thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat, and goodbye.